listening to the Isn't That Rich podcast, and we're your hosts, Jill Franks
and Ashley McVicker. As young females in the banking industry, we love simplifying the confusing yet everyday questions you have about money.
Like, how do I get my finances in order?
Where is my money really going?
How do I invest for my future?
How do I make my money work for me?
Can I really afford to buy that new home?
These are the questions that keep us up at night, and the truth is no one was born knowing how to handle their finances.
And chances are, walking into a bank to ask for help seems intimidating.
Whether you're a single person in your early 20s saving for your first home,
or you're an empty nester wondering what to do with that extra spending cash,
this is the podcast for you.
So today we're sitting down with the owner and chairman of the board at Farmers State Bank, Tom Franks. We're excited to have him on. Not only is he the chairman of the board and the owner of Farmers State Bank, but he is my husband.
He is your husband.
And we've been begging and trying to get him on this podcast since we began because I think he has such a great story to tell and not a lot of people actually hear his story.
Right.
And so today we're excited to sit down with Tom.
Yeah. Welcome on, Mr. Tom Franks.
Thank you.
The famous Tom Franks.
Glad to be here.
So, Tom, I want you to talk about and tell our listeners all about the biggest question they're probably wondering right now is how you got into banking in the first place.
I'll try to do a C-spot run, short version of how I got in, but originally I started out with the Dairy Queen that I built and operated in Harrisburg. Went to Dairy Queen College in Minneapolis, Minnesota for 3 weeks, and believe it or not, it's not just making a ball and curl. There were actually owners of Dairy Queens who failed and had their franchise taken away. So it was more difficult than it sounds. That led into doing construction work with my father.
I love the story of how you got into coal mining. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
At the time, my father, Bill Franks, thought that energy was a great opportunity for the future. And the federal government had approached him in 1980. Ronald Reagan was just elected president. Basically, the Treasury was broke, and they said, we need your farm to consolidate the Shawnee National Forest and for us to look for pieces that were outliers to them that didn't expand their border. So he got the idea. We bought a drill rig, and my father and I started drilling out the Shawnee National Forest on little isolated pieces to trade, and finally found a very small piece, 80 acres, that we traded 500-acre farm for to start our first mine, which was called the Tech Bar Mine. And that's where we had 19 employees and started out with 100,000 tons a year of production, and eventually grew that to the Big Ridge Mine, which was east of Harrisburg, and wound up with 600 employees and doing over 5 million tons a year of annual production.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yeah, one of the reasons I got into banking is when we initially started with the project, then I had a proposal that I had drawn up, very professionally done, I thought, and I went to every bank, literally, in the Midwest and got turned down every time. They would all say to me, great project, son, but you don't know what you're doing, which I didn't. They were accurate. Thank you, but no thank you. So I like to say I got turned down more than the bed sheets do at the Drury Inn in Marion. Literally everyone from St. Louis to Nashville to Atlanta to Louisville. Eventually, I found a bank called IMB, Indiana National Bank, in Indianapolis, Indiana, and played golf with the head of their loan committee the day prior. He said, I will take it, but I can tell you it's the worst loan we've ever had presented in the history of Indiana National Bank. Well, lo and behold, they approved us, and we got started with it. And the rest is kind of history. Just God blessed us along the way, and we grew from a tiny little company to a major employer in the area, which was my passion, to create jobs, help people, and that's how we got started.
I love that. That's wild. So, I mean, getting turned down by so many different banks led you to wanting to open a bank. And
I'd been on bank board since I was 22 years old. And in 1994, had the idea that it was so cyclical in the coal industry that I would feel like Bill Gates, and 1 year making a lot of money, and the next year I couldn't make payroll or pay my bills. So I thought, with my 4 children, it's insanity to leave this to them. So I started the idea of trying to find a bank that I could buy 100% of, just to build a branch in Harrisburg, my hometown. And the Rendleman family with Farmer State Bank of Alto Pass had been in business since 1910, almost 100 years at the time. So I was able to, there were 28 shareholders with the Rendleman family and heirs, was eventually able to buy 100% of the bank. And that led me to building a branch in Harrisburg, my hometown, which proved to be very successful.
I think I really want you to tell the story about, so you went all over to all of these banks and you were turned down all over the place. And when you finally got your loan, what happened after 6 months? Because I love hearing this story and people wouldn't believe it. And it's the worst nightmare of somebody who borrows a bunch of money.
I was almost afraid to make the call. We worked so hard, and 8 months construction, we had built a preparation plant to wash the coal, remove the ash and lower the sulfur. We had the underground slope in, the belts in, the bathhouse in, all was finished. And we mined the first lump of coal underground with a continuous miner, and we got the first lump. I still have it on my desk. And I went back to the office, left the mine, and got a call, and within 2 hours they said, "We're out of coal." I said, "What do you mean you're out of coal?" He said, "There is no coal. We're in solid rock." I'm like, "That's impossible." I said, "Well, where did it go?" He said, "We don't know. We're going to start drilling up and drilling down to see. We must have put the mine in on a fault that no one was aware of, even though we had done exhaustive drilling throughout the entire region." Lo and behold, within 50 foot of the bottom of our slope, as soon as we started mining, we hit a rock fault. So I had to call the banker up that had said it's the worst loan in the history of his bank. He would take it, but it had zero chance of being approved. And he was like me. I said, "I'm sorry, but we're out of coal." He said, "What do you mean you're out of coal?" I said, "It's gone." He goes, "Where'd it go?" I said, "Exactly, I don't know." But said, "What I do know is all the millions that you loaned me and took a chance on, I can't pay you back right now. So I need a 6-month stay of no interest and no principal payments until I figure something out and find out where it went."
I mean, what was going through your mind? I couldn't even imagine. I'm afraid to borrow $50,000 from a bank. So millions.
I'm afraid to use my credit card.
Panic and fear, but at the time, I was convinced it was the right thing to do. When I was going to all the banks, I was told at the time, when God closes a door or slams a door, then you're headed in the wrong direction. But I was so convinced it was the right thing to do that he wanted me to create jobs. But at that moment, I thought, oh my gosh, God, what have you got me into? I'm not worth 2 cents. I can't pay bills, and I borrowed millions of dollars to put a mine in to employ people to help, and there is no coal.
There is no coal.
There is no coal. So it took us, we finally found it, and we had put the mine in on literally a fault. The coal had sheared off and dropped down 14 feet. So it took about 3 months of mining rock and building arch supports and all to get back down to the coal seam. And then eventually we had a 20-year loan. And my story is we started that mine in 1988 at Big Ridge. And on a 20-year loan that we could pay principal and interest at any time on when we're in the fault, we paid that mine off in 1993. So we were debt-free in 93. So a 20-year loan got paid off in 4.5 years.
Oh my God!
Wow. So,
What did it feel like when you got the call that they found the coal?
Total relief. I mean, we knew there was something there because we had done too much drilling, and we had all the maps laid out and the topographies laid out, the different elevations of the coal laid out, and lo and behold, we didn't drill a hole 200 feet in front of us, and we put it in a fault.
Whew. So things are going good at the mine. You're paid back your loan, but it was cyclical. Like you said, it was good one year, the hardest thing in the world the next year. And that's when you got into banking. So you invested and you bought out the Alto Pass.
Again, I found a bank I could buy 100% of, which was Farmer State Bank of Alto Pass, chartered in 1910, just to build a branch in Harrisburg in my hometown. And I was going to play in a Boy Scouts golf tournament in Indiana, and had driven by a bank that was Monticello, exactly, Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, the back of a nickel. I was very impressed with the design. I thought that would be great in my hometown. So I found out the architects, Universal Design, which is a small firm in Ferdinand, Indiana, a tiny little town, but they are fantastic architects. And the story I was told by them is they went to Monticello, actually did a walkthrough on one of the tours. They were not allowed to have paper, pen, or anything. So they just walked by memory and taken steps and counted steps and measurements. And in their mind, they created an exact replica of Monticello. And that's what the bank is in Harrisburg today.
And it's a beautiful bank.
Very beautiful.
Yeah. But let's go back to Alto Pass because it was a tiny little thing. And I want to talk about the lending limit back then when you bought the bank.
Well, in 1994, I was able to acquire the bank. And at the time, it had made, I think, $11,000 in net income the year prior in 1993. And it had a lending limit of $25,000. And I thought, goodness gracious, you can't even finance a pickup truck here with that small, and been in business 100 years. There were 3 employees. They paid them out of a cigar box, literally, true story. And it's still there today. The charm is still there. Love going to Alto and visit. Tom Jones is now president down there, but it's a wonderful community, wonderful location.
But it is cute. It still has the original vault in the branch, and even the railing for the teller stations is still there. It's
and
just
all the old photos of the old bankers.
It's so quaint.
Yeah,
I love that spot.
So,
in the quick side story to that, in the 1930s, when President ordered all banks closed because there was a run on banks during the recession, our bank was the only bank allegedly open in the United States. And the president of the bank, Ren Searles, can tell this story better than I can, but the president of the bank had a guy that had bought a piece of farm equipment and wanted to come. That's when banks were ordered closed. So he said, meet me at the back door. So our front door was locked, but the bank kept dealing and taking care of customers out the back door of the bank in Alto.
Wow. And you mentioned Ren. I think it's really great that he still serves on the board of directors today. So the Rendelman family, which were the original owners of our Alto Pass branch, or Alto Pass, our original Farmer State Bank, still serve today. You know,
I think, and I may be wrong, but Ren may be the longest serving bank director in America.
He might be.
He's this is his 53rd year of serving on the board of Farmer State Bank.
Gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love it. He attends every single board meeting, and he comes to all of our events. We love Ren. So
we do.
Yeah. So you built the Monticello in Harrisburg.
How many years later, after you owned Alto Pass, did you build in Harrisburg?
I bought Alto Pass, Farmer State Bank, in 1994. Started construction in the fall of 94 on Harrisburg.
Oh, so it was right then.
Right then. My sole purpose was, again, to build something to leave my 4 children of value and not the insanity of being involved in the coal business. Yeah. And when I was a child growing up in Harrisburg, that corner where the bank is today had a gas station located on it. So I had to go through with the EPA of the tank removal and all of that, and it's set in a hole. And I've always been a believer in elevating things where people look up to you and not down upon you. So I put about 30 foot of dirt hauled in to give it the presence that it has today, where it sets up and not down where the old gas station when I was a kid growing up was.
It does have that presence. It does sit up. I mean, that sign, I think it's one of the busiest intersections in Harrisburg, and it does have a great presence. I love that location.
Yeah.
So started construction in the fall of 94, and we opened between Thanksgiving and Christmas of 1995.
It was fast.
And subsequently, in 1997, I was going to Marion, to the airport, to fly to our family home in Naples, Florida, and drove by what used to be the Southern Smorgasbord in Marion. And my parents, my dad always loved to eat. He called it pitch till you win, but he loved to eat at Smorgasbord. So I remember as a kid after church getting taken there for their fried chicken. Lo and behold, they were out of business. There was a for sale sign. So God kind of laid it on my heart then to build a bank there. So that's how Marion became.
Yeah, Marion East.
Marion
Which
East.
is where Jill and I work.
That's our office.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
The
again,
best branch, I have to say.
it's set in a hole probably 3 or 4 foot below the elevation of Route 13. So I built that all up again to give it a presence of being equal to or above Route 13 in the highway.
So Marion East is this is what I love about our banks, which I think is different from other banks, is like you just mentioned, you build these banks based off of buildings that you like and you think are beautiful. So Marion East has a very Key West vibe. Tell us about that.
The story there is I was actually in Islamorada, the Florida Keys, the middle of the key chain, bone fishing, and was waiting on the flats and saw this home and took out my phone. They just came out, believe it or not, and took a picture of it. And I thought, most banks are uninviting. People are intimidated to go in. They're all red brick, square, harsh, cold. You feel like you're going to the dentist office or the IRS. Instead, I wanted ours to be warm, inviting, different. So I took the picture, went to my little German architect firm in Ferdinand, Indiana, Universal Design again, and I said, hey, guys, I was wading fishing in the Keys and saw this house, took a picture. Can you build a bank for me off of this profile? They said, I think we can, and they did.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't go down to Key West and step it out.
Yeah.
Would have been a nice side trip.
Yeah. But the Marion East branch is beautiful too. But how long after the Marion East branch was built did you work on Marion West branch?
And let me ask you this too. What, how successful does, the next branch have to be for you to build another branch? So, Alto Pass was successful. Then you built Harrisburg. It was successful enough to build in Marion. So why another one in Marion?
We had outgrown, that was a small footprint when I bought the Southern Smorgasbord there. It was only on a little over 1/4 of an acre. And there was no room to expand. We were becoming so successful there in this market, in the Marion-Williamson County market, that I felt we had a need for another location. We had simply outgrown it, and there was no room to expand. So in 2015, built Marion West, which is located in front of Walmart in Marion, Illinois. And again, that's a very different design. It's a very elegant profile. It's Italian Renaissance. Again, I went to my architectural firm and asked them in Ferdinand, hey guys, here's my idea. Can you take this and make it into a bank? And again, they said, I think we can. And they did. And opened that bank in 2015.
That one's I would say that one's my favorite.
That one's your
so
favorite?
far. It's just pretty.
Yeah, it is pretty.
Yeah,
I love the
so
monumental,
beautiful.
the stone on the side of the building and the arches and
Very
yeah,
beautiful.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very elegant building. No expense spared there. That's all real limestone on the side of it that weighed 120 pounds per piece of stone with the drive it, the look. So very proud of it. In fact, we have a monthly bank board meeting there in about 2 hours today.
It's Bank Board Day. Amazing. And so we're working on a new project right now in Heron, Illinois. You're opening up a new branch.
We are. This will be our 5th location. Again, you and I, Jill and I, my wife, were going to a wedding of a young man who worked for us at the bank, also a very talented musician and singer in our church at Purpose House Church. I saw that lot. It was grown up, grown over, run down, ragged, looked horrible. And again, God just laid it on my heart. You need to build a bank there.
And that's the truth. We were going to the wedding and then that was a Saturday night. And then Sunday at church, he's like, let's go look at that spot one more time. I don't know why, we have to go look at it. And so after church, we drove over there and I think you made an offer the next day on Monday.
And was it even for sale?
It wasn't
was.
for sale. It just was sitting there idle. But I'd seen a for sale sign there, but it was so ragged and run down, the sign, I think, had deteriorated. So
Yeah.
I just called my realtor, Dave Thompson, and said, I want to buy this and find out who owns it, and let's make an offer.
And Dave went to work and he did.
And we did. And now the bank's going to be open probably in the next 60 days there.
So exciting.
People think that we do traffic counts and disposable income surveys and how do you know where to build a branch? And the truth is, we don't do that. We just go with God's lead, and it's proven very successful for us. So we're excited about Heron. President there is Quinn Laird, a longtime law enforcement officer in Heron. Kelly Green, who is Miss Everything in Heron, is on board. So we're going to have a tremendous team when we open.
Yeah. Not too much longer. I can't wait.
So you've been in banking since 1994, and obviously long before that, your crazy loans that nobody wanted to take you up on. What is one thing you can tell people right now in 2023 with all the media out talking about banking and money and cash and I don't even know, just crazy stuff that people talk about? What have you seen throughout the years that just you could tell people about banks and community banking especially?
You know, banks have, especially large banks, and most large city locations have become where there's no interpersonal communication. There's zero contact. You talk to a microphone or a phone and speak to someone if they'll even answer you back at the teller windows. My philosophy has always been treat someone like you want to be treated. So we take the time, go the extra mile, talk to them about their garden, their grandkids, the baseball team, and we've got a terrific staff who we're blessed to have that people brag on daily with how kind they are, how they communicate with each other, with the customers. So very blessed. But that's always been my philosophy. And you see large banks getting more and more away from having time to talk to people. It's all becoming modernized, computerized, cold, and we don't want to ever be that way. So that's our kind of niche to growing in these markets.
I loved your philosophy when you talked about the Alto Pass. It wasn't it something about the handshake loan, or wasn't there some truth to that?
No, it was actually, we advertised that slogan. I came up with, handshake loan is a contract, and it's as good, your word's as good as a written contract to me without all the paperwork. I can remember in the old days, my dad would buy a combine at auction, and we didn't have any money, and he'd call the banker up and go, I'll come by Monday and do the paperwork and get the loan. And they'd say, fine, come on in. So I wanted to bring back that feeling of personal communication with your banker, handshake loans, again, where your word is as good as a written contract.
I say that all the time. Is there anything you want people to know about you or Farmers State Bank that we haven't talked about?
I think there was a large scare early in the year of 2023, a couple of months ago, maybe only 6 weeks ago, where everybody was afraid there was a run on Silicon Valley Bank, and that was simply a mismanaged bank. And with the age of social media and information, they lost 30% of their deposits in 3 hours. So there was a run on the bank, and people were taking all the money out. In a well-run bank, there is no risk in that. The FDIC does a fantastic job of holding banks' feet to the fire because it's the public money and the public trust that you're involved with, and they make sure that we do everything right. So there is no fear with Farmers State Bank. We are sound, solid, having record year after record year, thanks to all of you. And we look forward to Heron opening an exciting future and continued growth for us.
Amazing. I want to talk about our growth because when we first started out at Farmers State Bank, you could barely make a truck loan. How large are we in size now? What kind of size loans can we do now?
When we bought the bank in 1994, again, the lending limit was $25,000. The total size of the bank at that time was $3 million. And we have grown that 100-fold. We're now at a $335 million bank in size.
Oh my gosh.
And the lending limit has gone from $25,000 to over $7 million on a particular loan.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share about what you've done? I think people think you're so interesting, Tom. I think you're very interesting, and you've done a lot of business. So I love that you were a Dairy Queen owner and you were interested in that, and then you did mining and banking. But are there any other businesses you want to talk about that you do or involved in? I see there's a hog farm and a jewelry store on my notes.
Yeah, they go together like a whipped cream on a hot dog. I think
Kind of like coal mining and banking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Rick Lane, brother-in-law, and I were involved with a farrow to finish hog operation back in the day prior to acquiring the bank and getting in the coal business. Also had the Galleries furniture store in Harrisburg on Route 45 where we had a jewelry store and furniture. I did that for a while. So kind of a jack of all trades. But what that allowed me to do is I feel like I'm probably the best credit analyst that we have simply because it's not all X's and O's. And having done everything, failed at a lot of it, been turned down with a lot of it, I have a empathy and a knowledge for what I think will work. And sometimes telling a customer no is the best advice you can give them. Some of their dreams just don't make sense, and others that they do. So it's not always black and white with me, or the numbers have to work, or it fits every box, or checks every box. We just kind of go by our gut, and it's worked out well.
Has banking always been easy? Because, I mean, just like the coal mining industry, I feel like the banking has a lot of regulation, and it's kind of not the easiest industry to be in either. So how has that been throughout the years? And has there been a point where you've thought about selling the bank?
You know, during the tenure of the 27 years, there's always ups and downs, and we've experienced those. We've been through good times, bad times, been through COVID together. So we adopted a culture change about 4 years ago, and that has really made our employees buy into our idea. We're a God-led bank, not bashful of that at all. Pastor of our church, Jason McKinney's on the bank board, and what I call we pull the weeds so the flowers can grow. So we got rid of all the backstabbers and the gossipers and the naysayers and the troublemakers. And everybody now, we have what they call a team huddle at every location every day. And that just builds camaraderie. And in the team huddles, you're to say something positive about the day, the bank, customers, thoughts you've had. So it's not a gripe circle. It's a team huddle of positivity. And all of those things have drawn our employees into our vision. And it's a great thing.
So you probably saw a big turnover in employees in the past, what would you say, 4 to 5 years? Did you?
I think we probably have. We just finished an event on April 4th that we had at Purpose House in the auditorium there. Again, it was a hoopla event, and the team huddle, all the team leaders, every employee was there. Several officers were there. Our directors, some were there. And that just further helps our new employees buy into our idea. I think we probably have 2/3 of a new staff in the last.
Since I've been here,
Yeah.
7 years, 6 years.
And they hadn't been through a hoopla event like that. It's called boot camp. And so it's boot camp for a name. And it's a lot of hugging, crying, shouting,
A lot of culture work, for sure.
getting out of your shell, becoming one. So it's not me, it's we, and it's all good.
Yeah. It has been good.
Yeah, and our new insurance agency is there. Do you want to tell us about FSB Insurance?
We had owned half of Williams Insurance for 22 years, I believe. And Steve and Jim Williams got of the age they decided they were going to retire. So we put it to them that, we would like to be in the insurance business. So we arranged and they agreed upon a buyout. So we are no longer the Williams agency. We are now Farmers State Bank Insurance, FSB. So we are excited about that. We are growing. We have built a staff and are building a staff to be able to handle the growth that we have. Exciting times right now. So our insurance agency is fully owned by Farmers State Bank, and we got a tremendous team hired there in place that is doing all the administrative things. We're building a base to be able to grow from. So we were understaffed, shorthanded, and we're bringing people in monthly and weekly right now to be able to handle the growth.
That's amazing, because I've actually never heard this story. How did you originally 22 years ago buy 50% of the insurance agency? How did you get into that?
There are only certain opportunities that banks have that they can do. So we can't do anything speculative with the public's money. So we can't go invest in a shopping center or a housing development. But owning an insurance agency was something that was allowed by the FDIC. So being in our hometown for 77 years, Williams was a logical one. I'd grown up with Jim and Steve Williams, known them all my life. So approached them about buying half the agency, and it was a very good partnership. And it's only getting better now that the bank owns 100%. And we're able to put the capital and the people in there to allow us to take off and go.
So I'm so thankful that you've been here with us today.
Me too.
I know it's been pulling teeth to get you on, but I'm very thankful. But is there any last words that you would want to leave with your customers or your listeners before we end our episode?
Or I think, is there anything you want to say kind of about the legacy you'll be leaving to people, because you've just done so much for so many people?
I would say in closing that follow God. Don't be afraid to choose a path. If it's truly God speaking to you, then you will know, and you can accomplish anything that you want in life. That would be my advice to people. Thank you for all of our customers for the unbelievable opportunity you've given us to serve you. We are so grateful, so thankful, excited for the new bank in Heron, and Farmers State Bank is going to be here for another 100 years.
Thank you, Tom.
Love it. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you all.
So, Jill, where do we go from here?
Be sure to check out our show notes for this episode, and also be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.